Hello, everyone. This is Paul Green with OmniPrint International. I am going to go ahead and start the webinar now. We still have a lot of people still showing up in the webinar, so I'm going to get going. Kind of give it a few minutes here to get going, so let's start. So first off, I'd kind of like to introduce myself. My name is Paul Green. I've been in the printing industry for 16, 17 years and solely in direct-to-garment for 12 to 13 years. So I started with working for direct-to-garment manufacturers basically when the printer started. So I've had the luck of going from the very first machines to what we're doing now and what we're going to be doing in the future. So I've got a lot of knowledge on this stuff, and I speak at shows, and I also write for magazines, Printwear Magazine and Impressions and SGIA, and just wanted to kind of let you guys know that I pretty much can be a resource for any of you at any time. So if you ever have questions, even besides this webinar, just know that whatever it be, if you have something that's related to direct-to-garment and you want to get an answer on it, or hit me up. I'll give you guys my email later. Just know I'm out there. So what we're going to be going over today is the FreeJet 330TX Plus printer. And what I'm going to do is, for people that maybe aren't familiar with the 330TX, which is still a printer that's available, kind of just give you a breakdown of the standard features and then the things that we've changed and added to the Plus machine. So for you guys to know, also there's the chat on the in the webinar, and you can put questions in there. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to, at the end of the webinar, try to answer as many questions as I can. But feel free to put in any questions while you can. And sometimes I can answer them kind of on the fly, depending on if they're kind of relevant to where we're at. So next thing I want to go over is just a quick thing, just to kind of give you some background. I'm going to go over about OmniPrint and FreeJet, the 330 Plus, and its special features. Something I really like to bring up is understanding cost of operation. Then we'll do questions and answers. So quickly about FreeJet and OmniPrint. So OmniPrint International started in 2004 and began with the FreeJet line of direct-to-garment printers. And since then, over the last 12, 13 years, we have been just moving forward by the day. And we're a direct-to-garment company. That's all we do. So we are so dedicated to making sure that we have the best customer service that we can offer. And everybody here is so knowledgeable because that's all we do. So you're talking to somebody who knows the machine like the back of their hand. And we really, with the purchase of a FreeJet and our customers, we really try to be there as much as we can, especially when it comes to education and doing whatever we can to, one, make sure that you're comfortable using the printer and you know what you're doing and you're being successful with your machine, but also try to help in other ways to where maybe you need a little help learning something like Photoshop, or you need a little help trying to price out your jobs or things like that. So as we move through this webinar, I'm going to throw in a few things which are new. So at the end of the webinar too, I'm going to give you guys a link for our 24-hour special that we're having. So you'll be able to get some specials on things like ink and then the printer. So we are OmniPrint International. We're in Costa Mesa, California. We also have an office in Connecticut. And we also have the distributor. So Midwest-wise, we have SPSI, which is our big distributor. We also have Davis International and Northwest Graphic Supply. So we have a few distributors out there. We also sell directly. So all of our distributors are really good and very knowledgeable on their product too. So let me kind of move on here. All right, so let's get into the FreeJet 330TX Plus and the features. And, so the regular TX has been around. It's gone, this printer's gone from basically a 300 to a 330 to a 330TX, and now to a 330 Plus. So it has moved. It's just gotten better and better and better and better and better. And for you guys that have maybe done some research on us or have our printers, we have a very, very good reputation. And what that really boils down to is just the TX itself, not even the Plus. It is the best print quality in the industry. People will back that up 100%, and washability is great. But then the other thing is, it really, really is the only printer that you can let sit and not have a heart attack after maybe a week's gone by and you haven't used it, and you know you're going to go back to a nightmare. We have a very, very good way to take care of the white ink system. And with the Plus, it's even, a little bit better. Not that the TX isn't already incredible, but the Plus has a few added things. So let's kind of move on here. So one of the, basically beyond our print quality and customer support and all that kind of stuff, if your printer doesn't work, or you can't depend on it, or you go on vacation for a week or two and come back to solid lines of ink in your printer, or hours of wasting ink, which is, let's face it, direct to garment, you're going to hear it's had a stigma for a long time. So essentially, white ink, for anything, white ink's a hard pigment to deal with because it's heavy and it likes to settle. So what that means is, if it's not moving, it'll sit around and then end up clogging up and then clogging the print head, and on and on and on. So with the FreeJet 330 and the TX, they both have what's called wet capping. So what wet capping is, when you're not using the printer, let's say you're done printing for the day, you will press a button to move the print head over, and where the print head sits, which is called its capping station, that's its home basically, we filled up with a cleaning solution from the system on the back. So that photo to the right of the printer, and then the red circle on the printer in the slides here, is showing the wet capping system. And what that does is you use that to pump cleaning solution into where the capping station is. And that means when we press a button and move the head back, it is now the nozzles on the bottom of the print head, which are you need to magnify them 200 to 300 times to be able to see them. They're that small. So they're sitting in a fluid. So essentially, you turn the printer off and the head's sitting in fluid, and it can sit for a month and not have any problems. And that is people are kind of saying they can do that. They're not saying it how they're doing it, because they're kind of doing it a little bit differently, maybe squirting solution in there, but it's not working the same as ours. We are the only people that really have a wet capping system. And I've been in the industry a long, long time. There's a lot of gimmicks with every machine. And this is really the only one that's worked. And when I first started with OmniPrint, I worked in another company for a really long time, and did product management there too. And dealt with a lot of printers. And when I left, I had a lot of options to where I went. And I came to OmniPrint and spent some time with the printer, and just really was just amazed by the product. And that's what sold me to move here, move to this company. And it is seriously the only printer that you can, obviously, if you're not printing, you're not making money, right? But there's going to be times when it's down, and those times when it's down, most every other printer out there, you're like 3 days of not using it, and you're starting to step into a danger zone, or an area of having to push a lot of ink through the printer just to get it to work. With this printer, a month, and you're printing within a few minutes, and the head isn't clogged. So I've seen a million ways to do this, but it's the only thing, and it's the most important thing, is the print head. If that's not working well for you, then you're not printing. So the wet capping system with the FreeJet TX and the Plus is, I mean, it's just unparalleled. Now, with the Plus, we added one more thing. So what we added to the Plus was actually circulation. So most printers have circulation. And what that's doing is it's moving the ink around in the lines. So when it's sitting, it's not separating, right? And that's something that's going to happen. So with the Plus, what you do at the end of the day is you'd wet cap your printer, and you would just leave the basic power on in the back. And every 2 hours, the white ink will circulate. And the benefit to that is you don't need to shake your whites. Pretty much every printer, you got to take out the cartridge or pick up the bottle and shake it a little bit before you start to agitate the ink, so in case it's separated. Because it's circulating every 2 hours, that motion is keeping the ink in the bottle moving, so it's not separating. So one, you don't have to shake your whites anymore. And then two, when your printer sits, you've got circulation and you have wet capping. So your printer can sit for, let's say it sat for a week. When you come back and start it, you're only dealing with maybe a foot of tubing that goes from where the circulation stops to the print head. So just that little area might need to be primed a tiny bit to get it going. So what that means is your startup is very, just the TX alone is very minimal in wasted ink as far as in production compared to any other printer, but now it's even more minimized. So you have a very small amount of ink to deal with that you might need to, move a little bit before you start if it's been sitting for a long time. But your head's not going to be clogged, and you're not going to be wasting ink. So the combination of the two now is just a really great feature. And it's, really it's just taking away the little things that white ink has always made you do. Shake it constantly. You have to do maintenance, and it's minimizing that past, which was a lot of maintenance before. So our next thing, and I just want to show you here in this picture. So this is a capping station where the green circle is, and when we wet cap, you press a button, the head moves over. You use the system in the back. And those two pads that you see where the circle is, that will fill up with cleaning solution. And then you press a button, the head moves back, it pushes up against the bottom of the printhead plate, and now the printhead plate is soaking in solution. So it's always ready to go, not clogging up on you. You'll also notice that there are clips on all of the tubes. And what that does is it stops the ink from, when it's sitting with fluid on the head, that's going to help stop it from getting pulled by tension one way or the other. So it helps stabilize the ink in the lines too. So it's the wet capping system on the printer. So both the TX and the Plus have wet capping. All the FreeJet printers have wet capping, but with the Plus, we're getting that extra added bonus of circulation on top of it, which goes to that next level of really, making it so you have a minimal amount of waste ink, which is virtually impossible in comparison to most other printers. You're wasting a lot of ink. Now, the next thing I want to go over is the ink system. So with FreeJet printers, so with the TX and the Plus, we both use they use a bulk ink system. So you're putting ink into a bottle on the back of the printer as opposed to putting it or using a cartridge. So I've kind of gone back and forth with cartridge versus bottle for a long time. And now that I've got quite a few years behind me dealing with the bottles, it really is the best way to go. And you're buying your ink in bulk. So first of all, you're buying your ink in bulk. So your costs are coming down quite a bit because you're not paying for the cartridge and the packaging and the label and all that stuff that's on a cartridge. And one of the main things too is cartridges always tend to have waste left over. So there's always leftover ink in the bottom of a cartridge, and even with your desktop printer, you take the cartridge out, shake it, put it back in, maybe get a couple more prints out of it. But with cartridges, you do end up with that, and over time that really adds up. So if you think about it, let's say you're buying 220 milliliter cartridge, realistically, you're getting about 190, 200 mils. So you're paying for ink that you're not even using. So it's just sort of a waste. So with a bottled system like this, we are not dealing with, any extra waste. We're getting the ink for cheaper right away. And all that really boils down to cheaper costs on your prints. Now with the TX, the 330TX, we use DuPont inks. We are pretty much one of the closest people to work with DuPont. We do a lot of testing for them and have a very good relationship. So we pretty much have the lowest price on that ink, and it's an ink that has been around since the dawn of man, and it's so tried and true, and it's going to work. It's going not to wash out. But the thing with that is it is sort of limited, and pretty much the rest of the industry is also very limited because you're limited to it's a water-based ink, so you're limited to printing on cotton and maybe cotton blends and man-made or natural fibers like canvas and hemp and bamboo and things like that. You can get good prints on, but once you start to move into man-made fibers, the quality starts to go down. And then once you start hitting 100% polyester, you cannot do it, and you can't print. With DuPont inks and pretty much almost every other printer out there, you cannot print on 100% black polyester. The white just will not work very well. So with the Plus, we introduced a new ink. So right now, the Plus comes with our new Gamut Plus inks. The Gamut inks are a totally new dispersion technology. We tested them we've been working on them for about 2 years, and the quality on cotton, it's almost, basically it's identical on dark polyester. And that's been a no, can't be done since the beginning of time with direct to garment. So this is very breakthrough stuff. And you are going to get really good washability with this ink too. So whether it's cotton or polyester, we did some serious wash testing, and it held up actually even better than the DuPont, which has a very, very good wash. So we're really, really impressed with this ink. Currently, it's only available if you buy the Plus. So you can't, right now, it's not available as an ink that you can buy, but it will be actually very, 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 very soon. You will be able to buy it. So if you have a machine, which is Epson based, you can use this ink in there. So this is a really big thing. And the other thing about this new ink that comes with the Plus are the blends. So when you're working with, let's say, DuPont ink, once you hit a 50-50, you see a difference between 100% cotton and a 50-50. With this new ink, it doesn't matter. Blends look just as good. So you don't have that sort of drop off once you get to around a 50-50 shirt. So you're good with the same ink set with pretty much cotton all the way through your polyesters. So this ink is, we debuted it at SGIA in Las Vegas, and we're printing polyester, and people were walking around and going to other booths being told, no, they're not. That can't be done. Well, we're doing it, and we're selling it, and it's working really well. And also at that same show, we won Printer of the Year for best print quality. So that's a pretty prestigious award, and we're very, we couldn't be happier with this. So that's one of the other big differences when you're going with, if you're buying the Plus, is it does come right away with the Gamut Plus inks. And so you guys have a ton of questions coming in, so I just want to let you know I will be addressing all your guys' questions very soon once we kind of get past a few things here. But don't think I'm ignoring you. I got your questions, and I'll go through them. Okay, so here is actually, this is a picture of a black print on polyester. So you guys have ever done this or seen printed with DuPont or other inks on poly? this is pretty amazing to see. It's something that, like I said, I've heard every day almost since I started in the industry about when can we print a polyester, when can you do dark polyester. No, never going to happen, not going to happen. So here's a picture of it, and what I'm going to do really quickly is show you guys a quick video on showing you it printing on a black polyester shirt. So give me 1 second here. So I'm kind of looking at your guys' questions as they're coming in here, and or your comments, and everybody is just basically freaking out on how well that looks. And yeah, you guys are in kind of the know of how polyester has been and how these prints are. It's phenomenal. And for people that have just gotten their pluses, it's hard for them to relate on like what they actually have right now in comparison to what we've been dealing with over the years and years and years of direct to garment. So I just got a ton of messages from you guys that were just really happy about seeing that. So I'll be hitting up your guys' questions, but yeah, so that was on polyester. And to kind of give you guys an idea to sort of break it down, so here's some pictures too. So the underbase and then the color pass, very solid, very vibrant, and the washability too is the other amazing factor. We did 25 washes. At 25 washes, it was just barely starting to sort of fade a tiny bit at 25 washes. So we've got up to 40 washes, and it's still looking really, really good. I mean, at 40 washes, most shirts are done. So the washability on top of it is just incredible. So let me kind of move on here. So this is sort of a smaller feature, but it's a nice feature to have. And what it is we have a fully automated height adjustment. So with any direct to garment printer, before you start your print job, you're going to need to do a height adjustment, which is going to set the distance from the shirt or the surface that you're printing on to the distance from the shirt, so the head and the shirt, so you have a nice gap there and just enough to get a good print, and two, so it doesn't hit your print when you're printing. And a lot of printers, it's a manual turn a knob, and it, and then eyeball it or put a gauge in or who knows. And with even on the 330TX, you're holding a button, so it's a mechanical adjustment. It's very easy to do. But with the Plus, you press 2 buttons on the control panel, and it does everything you need to do. So you put your shirt on before you start your job. So if you're using the same shirt, you just do it once. If you make a change, you do it again. And you press a button, and it does it all for you. And it moves, and then it's ready to print. So give me 1 second here. I want to play a quick video of that so you guys can kind of see it. And you guys that actually already have a TX, you can see what it does. So give me 1 quick second to bring that video up for you guys. All right, so that was a quick video there, just kind of showing you the auto adjustment on the height there. And I got a ton of questions coming in, but just to sort of answer a few of them. Yeah, we were working with an Epson print head on our printer, and the inks, the new inks, obviously they're going to work with Epson. So if any Epson-based machine out there, you will be able to use the Gamut Plus inks on. Right now, it's been solely for the Plus, so to get that ink, you got to buy the Plus. But we have the trade show at Long Beach coming up here, and we were sort of trying to plan on making it available at that point. So we will have a way to change your ink set over. Essentially, you're going to buy new ink and flush, and then there's going to be some changes to the rip, which would be required because they're different profiles now, and obviously the ink is going to lay down a little bit differently. But yeah, it should be very, very, very soon. Okay, so let's move on here. Now, some of you guys mentioned during the printing process about how well that print looked, and so every direct-to-garment printer is either going to come with, or you're going to have to buy a RIP software for it, which is a raster image processor. So it's essentially the software which will create a white underbase for your graphic. So when it prints to white, and it creates that within the software, but it really dictates what the printer is doing. It's telling it how to print the color and how to create the underbase, and there's a lot of different ones out there. And the software that comes with our printer, the Direct Rip software, is seriously incredible. And I've dealt with my fair share of RIP software over the years, and this software, essentially, in most printers, when you bring in a job, you have to tell it things like print the white, print the color, print the white at 1440, print it in bidirectional, use this much white, do this, do that. And then when you print, it might not be exact. So you got to print it and then make some adjustments and then print it again, and then make a few adjustments and then print it again, and then try to dot. So, I mean, if you're printing one t-shirt for somebody, how is that going to make you any money? I mean, it's just insanity that you have to do that kind of stuff. And that's sort of like normal for direct-to-garment, which is, I think, horrific. So with our software, you're bringing in your graphic, you're telling it, is it a black shirt? Is it a cotton shirt? Is it a polyester shirt? Is it a white shirt? And you just tell it what kind of shirt you're printing on, and all the presets are done at that point. So as long as you just tell it it's a black shirt on polyester, it knows everything to do. You don't need to mess around with sliders and things like that. The color is going to come out as close as you can get with a direct-to-garment printer, and it's going to be, as long as the graphic's good, so is your print. And the graphic is going to be the most crucial element. Better your image, the better your print. And there's no messing around. It's going to be a one-time deal. You're not going to go, oh, well, I need to adjust the green. It's not, matching, and none of that. And that's a really amazing thing. So we spend a ton of time here doing color profiling to make sure that that happens when you press the print button. So another thing with our software that's a pretty cool feature, and it's actually an accurate feature because you are physically typing in what you're paying per liter for your ink. And so when it rips, all that data will allow us to be able to figure out how much your print costs. So you're going to get a breakdown of everything if you go into the file after you've printed it, and it'll tell you how much ink you've used, how much the print cost, how long it took, and you can actually do that prior to printing. So you would just run the graphic through without printing, and you're going to get that price right away, which is going to really, really help you price things effectively. So, okay, really quickly. Okay, very quickly, because this is a pretty good question from Chris Smith in Colorado. He's asking, do you need a dedicated area for the printer that is humidity controlled? And in most printers, well, pretty much every direct-to-garment printer out there, yeah, you have to have full-on control of the room. The humidity, in most cases, needs to be 45% or above in all times, or else it's going to start giving you problems. And you also, the temperature, really, the factor with the temperature is if it's too hot, it can sort of thin the ink out a little bit, but I've been everywhere and I've never dealt with that problem to where it's been way over 100 degrees. If it gets cold enough to freeze, then it's water-based ink. It does have some things in there which helps slow that process down, but it could freeze and make your ink sludgy. But every direct-to-garment printer really needs that humidity. Our printer, we don't need it. And I don't think we have one customer. We maybe, if they're in an area where they're constantly running like a furnace and it's dry, or, but I haven't heard of anybody who's using one. So no, our customers don't need to use a humidifier. I mean, you do need to kind of be a little cautious of when you're setting your printer up about paying attention to maybe it's not getting, making sure it's not getting like a stream of air hitting it from, let's say, maybe an AC vent, which could be, blowing things around, or it's not need a fan, or, you don't have your printer directly in the front window, or, just kind of basic things like that. But as far as having to have this specific crazy environment, no, we don't need that. And I spent a long time in a room with, 3 or 4 heat presses and a bunch of people and 3 humidifiers going, and that environment isn't the most comfortable. It's like being like a Vietnam jungle, essentially, in some cases. So very, very cool feature that you do not need to deal with having a humidifier in the room. So that's a great question, and thank you so much for bringing that one up. So, like I said, a lot of people are still coming in. I'm going to try to hit up some questions on the fly, but I will be going back and going through all of the, try to hit up all your guys' questions as they come in. So back to the RIP. It's such a giant factor when it comes to direct-to-garment, because it's telling the printer what to do, and if it really boils down to, with our RIP, the quality of your graphic. The better your graphic is, as far as being high resolution and the right size, and the better your print's going to be. So it is a really good RIP. And the other thing with the RIP too, it does have some graphic tools in it to where, you can rotate your image, you can mess around with the hue and saturation and things like that. But it's not a full-blown, editing software. So with any RIP, when it boils down to this, I always say, one, either use software that you're comfortable with. I'm total Photoshop person, and Photoshop really matches what direct-to-garment printers do. So having Photoshop is really the best tool. But, being able to create an amazing graphic in Photoshop and then print it on our printer and not have to deal with sliders and multiple prints. I mean, I'm not going to say who I worked for. A lot of you guys probably know, but we used to instruct people to print it 3 or 4 times on a shirt before you print it. That way you can dial it in. I mean, that's straight out of my mouth. So I mean, what happens when they're like, yeah, I want one shirt, and you just have to print it 4 times on one shirt and waste that shirt and waste a bunch of ink, and then half the time the time to do it, it's just sort of insanity. So all right, so that's our rip. Let's go into the next section here. So a few more special features, and there's something that's not on here, which I'm going to bring up. So our printers use a tuck lock system. And when you you're putting the shirt onto a platen, and once you put it on, it's got sort of rubber edges. So you just take your fingers and pinch the sides of the shirt, and it grips into the platen. The really nice thing is, if you kind of look at our printer, it's called a gantry system. So a lot of printers, it's actually sort of a platen table that moves into the printer. And then as it starts to print, the platen table moves out slowly. With ours, you take the platen, you put it down, you put the shirt on it, and then the printer moves over the shirt and then prints over it. And this is one of the first things I was like, why this way, right? If you think about and if you guys have a printer that works with a moving in table, it's moving in. And every time it moves in a little bit and stops, there's motion. And so the print head's moving left and right. The table's moving in, stopping, moving in, stopping, and it's wobbling. You're printing onto a moving target. And what I've noticed is, you print, let's say, 20 shirts, you'll probably notice that 6 or 7 of those shirts have registration problems here and there. Some, big, some little, but they're all over the place. And that's because you're not dealing with something that's just static. And the way our printer is, you're printing onto a static surface. And the other thing is, let's say you need to go from a hoodie to a t-shirt, or to a sleeve platen, or something different. All you do is just pick it up and put the other one on there. There's no unscrewing or all that kind of stuff to move around. The other benefit too is, when you're using this kind of system, you can have a secondary one where you have, let's say you put your shirt on, you're printing it. While that one's printing, you can be loading a shirt onto another one and having that ready to help sort of speed up your production. I'm getting quite a few questions about the platens, and I'm going to try to get as much as I can. One of them is difficult about printing on different sections of the shirt. Very, very easy to do. Essentially, once you put the shirt onto the platen, the rip works off of what's called top center. So the graphic, where the print is going to start, is based off the top of the shirt and the center. So in the rip, you would say, come down, let's say standard print. We don't want it right next to the collar. Come down 2 inches. Top center. So it's going to be centered, and it's going to come down 2 inches. Now, let's say we're doing a pocket drop. Then we'd say, come down 2.5 inches, and then left from top center, another 3 inches. And you can print preview to see where it's going to be, but that's essentially how you move it around. It's just a top center. And then when you go to, from a t-shirt to, let's say, the sleeve platen, it's always top center. So it's going to start printing at the top of the sleeve in the center. So all you need to figure out is, how far down do I need to start that print? And obviously too, let's say the sleeve platen is 4 inches wide. You got to make sure, obviously, your graphic isn't like 12 inches wide. So very, very easy to do. and we have quite a plethora of platens. The newest one for you guys that have them, I believe they should be here very soon, is actually what we're calling a threadable platen, okay? And what that means is right now the way it's set up, and it's not very, it doesn't really, it's not really a big issue at all, but you don't thread the shirt on like you would with screen printing, where you're actually just printing on the top surface of the shirt and the back side of the shirt is hanging down underneath. You're printing onto both layers. We have a new platen coming out that's threadable, and that means you just put the top part of the shirt on there. And what that helps with is, let's say you're printing onto the back of a shirt and it has a pocket. Well, that pocket on the front of the shirt is going to create a little bit of a raise on the surface of the print. So, you have to, there's ways you can put things inside the shirt to raise it, or just know that you sort of need to set your heights off of where the little higher part is. So you can deal with it. It's not a problem, but the threadable platen just makes it way, way, way easier to do. So a few quick questions here. Do you need to pre-treat dark polyester shirts? Yeah. The way that it works, so essentially when you're printing with direct-to-garment, any direct-to-garment printer, you have to pre-treat. So when it comes to white t-shirts, you don't necessarily have to pre-treat a white t-shirt. You'll get a pretty decent print on it, but pretty decent, I don't think I need to explain more than that. When you pre-treat it, you're essentially putting the print more on top of the fibers, and you're getting more vibrancy from that. Whereas when you don't pre-treat a white shirt, the ink is soaking into the fabric, and you're looking at the print in the shirt. Whereas when you pre-treat, it's more on top, and that gives you way more vibrancy. So the comparison is sort of night and day. But when it comes to whenever you need to print white ink, so if it's a black shirt, even a white shirt, if you're printing white ink, you have to pre-treat. And that's just because if you think about the technology, we have we're dealing with a print head, right, with microscopic nozzles on it. So to push white ink through that, it has to be relatively thin. So if we were to not pre-treat and print white ink onto a black shirt, it would be essentially like pouring milk onto a shirt. It would just absorb it. So the pre-treatment, one, creates a layer for the white ink to sit on top of, and two, when the white ink lands on the pre-treatment, it causes sort of a chemical reaction, which makes the white ink gel. That way we can print color on it right away. You guys that screen print know generally you have to print your white, flash dry it a little bit, and then put your color on it. So that's kind of doing that for you. It's setting the white up so we can put color on it. So the way that the new inks work is one ink set. So with the Gamut Plus, you have one ink set that works for cotton all the way through polyester and everything in between. But you would use for a white t-shirt, it would be the same pre-treatment. But when we go to a dark shirt, there is going to be a pre-treatment for cotton and then a pre-treatment for polyester. So it's dark poly, dark cotton, and then for light garments, it's the same one for both. So it's in the pre-treatment there. But good questions, guys. And I got a ton of them, so don't worry if I'm not answering it right now. I will. How about 50/50 shirts? Yeah, we get really, really, really good prints on them, Holly. I'm not sure if you talked to the guys in tech. We've been kind of messing around with it, too, to see what the best is. But it seems so far that the poly gives you the best on a 50/50 as opposed to the cotton. But I'll go over that more with you personally. Okay, so here's a picture. These are cotton prints. Like Scott just said, pre-treat everything. Yeah. But with the Plus, it's a little different because you have a poly pre-treat and you have a cotton pre-treat, and then you have a 50/50. So, which one's going to work better, the cotton or the poly? Because it's half and half, right? So mix them together. All right, so this is a print on white just to kind of show you guys the quality and the vibrancy and the detail that we get from our printer. And this is on cotton. I showed you guys a poly print earlier, so this is on cotton. And then here's one on a black shirt. So, I mean, you can just really see the detail, the color. The other thing that's really good with our RIP too is when you're printing an image like this one that has what I would call a gradient transparency to the white underbase, where you have that fading out effect in the background. Our printer does it to a T. Try it with other printers and you'll see a hard edge, or you have to mess around with sliders all day long until you get it to look like that. Or so huge thing here. Once again, that's kind of going back to our RIP, but something I wanted to point out. Okay, so those are some things with the printer. Now, this, for you guys that already have your printers and stuff, you've already bought your printer, it's something that's good to know. But for anybody out there that's sort of looking for a printer or getting into it, and even with you guys that have your printers, this is really, I've kind of gone over this before, but it's something that's so important because as an industry, I've had the privilege of working with so many people over the years, and I can't even tell you how many trade shows I've been to, but there's always the same frame of mind when it comes to looking at a printer. You sort of have this notion of how much does the printer cost? How much does the print cost? Those are the two sort of variables that our mind goes to. And realistically, there's so many other variables that you need to think of, and the operational cost is a huge one that doesn't really get asked. So for you guys out there that are looking to get into direct-to-garment and out there questioning, and this is something that you should really, this is going to help understand like the company you're dealing with, what their knowledge is, how they're, because operating a machine one next to another, what it's going to cost you, and the difference that's your profit margin, right? So we made a comparison here, and it may have changed a little bit because there's been a few things, but we're going to make a comparison here between our machine and with the Epson, right? So the Epson printer came out, a lot of people bought them. After a while, they started to figure out that they couldn't make their car payment anymore, and they weren't really making any money with it. And this is where I'm getting into the operational part of it, right? So they might have bought their printer for a little bit cheaper than ours cost, but over at 1 year, that's where it made the difference. And this is your future, your business, the money you're making, and your livelihood, right? So up front, okay, so what I'm going to kind of go over really quickly is we're going to take a look at the FreeJet 330 in comparison with the Epson F2000, okay? And I actually have this was done, one of our customers had one of their machines, and we had them right down to a T because they really needed to do this, and we did the same thing and compared what it took to do the same job on both printers over 1 year, right? So what we're going to do is, let's say both printers are going to print the exact same graphic for 1 year. I think it was 750 times a month, and we're going to compare the two. Okay, so with the Epson, so first of all, the cost per liter is $345. It might have come down a little bit, but it's still up there. Estimated waste in the ink cart is $17.25 because, like I said, with a cartridge, you end up with that little bit of ink at the bottom that you don't use. So realistically, your actual cost per liter is $362 because you're not using that ink. So with ours, you got a bulk ink system. It's in a bottle. You refill it and you drain it, and you don't end up with ink sitting there that doesn't get used. So that equals in cost per milliliter, which is the sort of micro breakdown of the ink, is 36 cents. The cost of to print this graphic, so the same graphic, we're going to print it on our machine and their machine. When you print it on the Epson, it costs $5.75 just in ink. Okay. Automated cleans. So the Epson, no matter what, it will do cleans regardless of if you press a button to tell it to do it or not. There's a built-in mechanism where after X amount of prints or time, it does a clean, and a pretty heavy clean, and you have no control over that. This basically adds up to $391 a month. Okay, something you are not thinking about. Okay. Monthly required flush. Now, they're saying that this isn't required anymore. They've got sort of a hoopty, use a needle, squirt it in, kind of a, copying us a little bit, but not the same. But it isn't really released in the States yet. It's been released in Japan, I believe. But it will require that you do a flush of the system, right? So once a month, you have to flush the white ink out and then put it back in. So you have to waste all that white ink, then use a cleaning solution, and then fill all the lines back up, right? So every month, that will cost you $120. The Epson also has consumer parts on it, right? So they have a very desktop printer mentality, right? When you go to Staples, let's say, and you see, oh, that's an awesome price on that printer. You buy it and you get home and you print like 5 documents, and then the cartridge thing tells you got to put new ones in there. And then you go to the store and the cartridges cost more than the printer. They have that same mentality. They're about getting you on the ink and getting you on these parts, which are designed to where the printer goes, oh, you got to replace that. Oh, you got to replace that. It's where they make their money. And that's why they can come in a little bit cheaper on the retail price of their printer. So the consumable parts was $154. So this is 750 prints for the same image, and these were the costs, just basic operational costs, okay? So the production cost over 1 year of printing this graphic was $57,915.08. Now, it has a 1-year warranty too, so if you want to extend that the next year, it's going to cost you $2,000 more, okay? So now let's take the exact same print job and all the same specifications and turn that to our printer. Cost per liter is $145. Estimated waste ink and cartridge, there isn't any waste ink, so your actual cost of ink is your actual cost of ink, which is $145 per liter. The cost per milliliter breaks down to 15 cents. The cost to print this graphic was $2.30. This was like, on our printer, that is a maximum ink usage. Like, this is like a giant square of white ink underbase, right? So I'd say on average we're around $1, a little over, a little less on a dark shirt. To maybe sometimes $1.50, but generally closer in that dollar range depending on your graphic. But $2.30, that's a lot, but still in comparison to almost $6, right? Automated cleans during the production, none. Yeah, you need to do cleans when you start the machine up just to sort of get things going, but it's very minimal. The printer isn't just going to stop and say, hey, I'm going to do a $10 clean for you real quick. You're welcome. It doesn't do that. Monthly required flushing, no, there isn't. Consumable parts, it takes quite a while for you to need to over time replace things like dampers, or and they're not very expensive. But our printer just doesn't stop in the middle of a print or after a print and make you buy parts for it, right? They'll wear out over time like they should, and you're going to get the most out of them. And once again, 750 prints, same thing. So the cost to do that over a year with our printer was $10,696.50. And the next year would cost you $0 because we have a 2-year warranty. So the savings over a year, and I've got somebody checking me on my math, so I'll double check it. But regardless, even if I'm like $20,000 off, $47,000 difference. That's what it's costing you over our printer to do that. So the thing is you got to think in a cost of operation, and what, ask those questions. My main point here is it's not really how much is the printer when you buy it, right? It's what is it going to cost you over a year? What's it going to cost you? What are going to be involved in that? It's not only the cost of the printer. So anyways, you have to think of those things and you have to ask those questions. And that's my point, is ask those questions. And understand, even if you own a FreeJet, what are those things that I am not thinking about that are costing me money that I'm not charging for, right? But what it's really boiling down to too is when you let's say you sell a shirt for $15, would you rather make $5 on your shirt or 15, would you rather make $10 on your shirt or like 5 or less? That's what it's boiling down to too, is your profit margin. So try to think about that stuff. Ask those questions. Hey, does this thing do automated cleans? How much ink does that use? Do I need to flush it? All those, what's the cost of your ink per liter? So something you really need to understand too is, and I know this one real well, you can have a printer that the ink cost is 10 times more, but I guarantee you I can create a graphic that will print and look great and big, and it comes out really cheap, but you won't be able to do that. And you're wondering why. You saw it at the show and you said it was $1 for the print, but now I'm printing and I'm running through ink and I'm not making any money. That's why. There's a reality to things. And, I just wanted to kind of bring that one up just because it's something that I've kind of talked about with some articles, and I wanted to throw it in here because I just want to make sure that everyone's kind of thinking the right way. So, I'm going to move on here. I got 1 million and so questions that came in, and I want to make sure that I'm getting back to you guys. So let's see here. Addressing the cost of the print heads. Are these heads for this ink and adaptations of paper? Okay, so basically, okay, I already know where that question is coming from because that question started out from Sawgrass, who sells sublimation printers. And that's the terror tactic of, well, the titanium dioxide's metal and it wears through the print head and it makes print heads are going to wear out. They're a consumable item on a printer, and if you're printing enough to wear your print head out, the print head cost isn't going to really matter because that's part of using the machine, and that's part of any machine that's in a production. So I can't really give you the exact shirt amount, but if you're printing pretty decently every day, let's say like 30 shirts a day, and you're taking care of your printer, you should definitely be getting anywhere over a year, 2 years. Some people are on 3 years. That really boils down to you making sure you're taking care of the print head and you're doing your cleans, you're maintaining the printer, you're wet capping it. Everything that you can do that we're giving you that's built into the printer is going to help prolong the life of the print head in comparison to any other machine and the way that they take care of it. Now, yeah, the ink that goes through the head is definitely different than the ink that goes through for paper, but it's not really that relevant. It's a way of trying to get you to buy sublimation ink. So, print heads. The other thing I'm going to bring up right away too, because it's another thing that you're going to hear from people that, oh, that's discontinued, you're not going to be able to get parts for it. Well, they're saying that in America, and we have factories and places that we work with on a constant basis, and there's this continent, kind of this place called Asia, where everything is made, and we pretty much can get whatever we need from them, and everything is very available. The amount of machines that are on the market which use the print head that we use is so big that the market to have that print head is gigantic. So to remove that would be a giant loss of money. So it's a scare tactic. So the heads will be available. Can't say they're going to be available forever. Nothing is, but there's a minimum of 5 years where we have to have print heads. So that's part of it. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's kind of a, I'm going to tell it kind of how it is, but thank you for asking that. And it's important that you guys understand that, because you just, everybody sort of has their way of explaining why their machine's better, or what the deal is, or why you shouldn't buy a direct-to-garment, you should buy sublimation. And, this is really kind of where a lot of this stuff gets generated from, but they're good questions to ask regardless. Time, pre-treatment paper. This is, when I'm going over I'm talking the cost of operation, right? So I'm talking about the actual, what the printer's costing you itself. So if you're not even printing, it's costing you money. Our printer, when you're not using it, if it's a 330TX, you turn it off and it sits there wet capped. It's not every 4 hours doing a clean to move ink through the system and wasting it. And with the Plus, you actually leave it on in the back just so the ink can circulate every 2 hours. It's not wasting any ink, it's just moving around the tubes. Every other printer out there relies on ink being pushed through the print head so it doesn't dry up. It's not being wet capped. So that's wasting ink. So that's sort of a breakdown of that one. Let's see here. So Chris Baez, he's at our printer, and he's been using the same print head for 4 years. So just kind of, Chris is a pretty heavy-duty printer too. Let's see. Heat press recommendations for cure, pre-treat, what size and pressure is needed. Okay, so it sort of depends. As far as with the DuPont ink, your 330 for 90 seconds, and we like to do 90 seconds twice when we cure a print, because it really instills the fact that is not going to wash out on you. So we do a double press. That's what DuPont say to do. And you might hear 90 seconds or less, and you can get away with that, but you might not get away with it, after 10 prints or 10 washes. And we just, if you want to do 90 seconds, go ahead, but we are not telling you to do that. We're telling you what we know works and what is really going to make sure that thing washes well. Now, when it comes to the polyester and the newer stuff, when it comes to cotton, it's very similar, but when it comes to polyester, we're dealing with a different animal. So the curing is a lot different. It's going to be, light pressure, and it's a lot lower temperature, essentially. So we're around 220 degrees when we press it. And we'll do 90 seconds twice, and our white's a little different. But there are a little bit differences when it comes to the polyester, because we're dealing with a fabric that's essentially going to melt or get stiff or not work well at those higher temperatures. Let's see here. Can you help us calculate costs, including pre-treatment? Yeah, so one of the best ways to do it, just to get yourself an average, is because it's a very hard thing to with a printer, it's easy to do because we're taking the cost of the liter, and then when the RIP turns it into a graphic that's going to print, it understands exactly how many milliliters it's putting out and what it's doing. So that can be calculated very, very finely. But when you're pre-treatment, it's a little more just kind of all over the place. But one of the best ways to do it would be to weigh your shirt before you pre-treat it, and then see how many grams that is, and then equivalent that to, if you're buying a gallon, the grams into a gallon. and how much you paid for it, and that will give you sort of a basis. I generally tell people at a very, very minimum, first of all, you have to make sure you're charging for pre-treatment when you're pricing. You can't forget about that one. People do, and it'll catch up. So I would say 50, 75 cents is going to definitely cover you. If you throw in a buck, you're definitely covering yourself. But about 50 cents, you're for surely, you're not hurting yourself at 50 cents. Some people charge a quarter. That's, maybe breaking even or not. Just depends on how much you're pre-treating. So it's pretty hard to get a good one on there, but I'd say at a minimum 50 cents. And if you have room, I would make it $1. That way you're profiting, and you're also kind of helping out with the amount of time that it takes to do it. Let's see here. Chris says he actually writes down on the pre-treatment bottle how many prints he gets from it, and then he divides it in the actual cost, which gives him a basis. That's a good way to do it. Double pressing on the heat press. Essentially, you pull the press down. We use a light pressure when we press the ink. So we press it for 90 seconds, and then once it pops up, you let it give it a second to just get that steam out of there, and then you press it again. And then something that I want to bring up with that too is if you're seeing a bunch of steam coming off, even let's say at 90 seconds is what you're doing, or even if you're doing it twice at 90, if there's still a ton of steam coming off that print, that means there's still moisture in your print. And moisture it's going to affect your washability a little bit. So you're going to see a little bit of steam come off. But if you're seeing a nice plumage of steam still coming off your garment after the second time you pressed it, and when you're drying it when it's pre-treated, you just don't want to see a lot of steam. You want the shirt to be as dry as possible. One, after you've pre-treated it and you've dried it, you want it to be not steaming a bunch before you go print on it, because that means there's moisture still in it. And then the same thing when you're curing it. So you'll see a little bit, but if we're still seeing heavy steam, hit it up a little bit more and get that moisture out of there. Let's see here. So Mark Heiss up there, he's one of our customers, and he has a lot of printing. He throws in $1. It's a great way to do it. And yeah, don't forget, you guys are going to use silicone paper or some sort of a sheet too. So that's going to last you a few prints. And you want to separate that. Let's say it's sort of a nickel for every print. You got to think about all those things. But my main point was understanding here that, let's say one printer's 14 grand, the other printer's 18 grand. You go with the one because it's 14, but over the year it costs you 30 grand, 40 grand more to use. So that's sort of the things where I kind of want you guys to sort of think about those kind of things too. Let's see. So let me try to double check and go back up here. I had a lot of questions at the beginning. So let's see. Okay. Got a lot of sort of internal conversation. Now, you guys were talking to about pre-treatment machines. So I want to address that. Our printer comes with the Wagner, and you might hear now and then some people say that it's an ineffective way to pre-treat garments. Well, we actually, all our sample shirts, all the shirts we do for shows, we do it by hand because you have control over it. So every time that once you know that you're doing it right, that it's always being done right. Pre-treatment machines, I think, are definitely a really, really good thing to have because they are consistent. So you're going to get the same spray, the same every time. The thing with a pre-treatment machine, though, is after you use it, every time you really need to clean it and flush it and take care of it because you're dealing with pre-treatment. And to relate it to something, it's sort of like thinned down Elmer's glue. It reacts the same. So, and that's not what it is. I tried. So, but imagine you got something with this gluey type substance in it and you let it sit for a couple of days. Guess what? You're going to have to clean it and try to get it going. And, so they are a lot of maintenance. I think in some cases, some pre-treatment machines can be more work than the printer. So they do work great. They make it a lot easier. They help with that learning curve a lot at the very beginning. But I always suggest learn to do it manually anyways and do it right and do it good, because if that thing goes down, you're going to have to break out that Wagner sprayer anyways. But they do work well. You just have to keep them clean and keep them going. So there's a lot out there. We like to offer we generally do it as a courtesy for our customers. And there's a range. There's the Treat Bot, which is like $800, somewhere around there. And it does the job. Keep it clean. It does the job. It's very simple, but it's quite a lot cheaper than most of the other stuff out there. You're looking at about a little over $2,000 up to like $4,000 or $5,000 on some of these things. So the other thing too is, how soon is it going to take you to reap the costs of that machine to where you're benefiting from it financially. So, I kind of look at some machines and go, that's $4,000, $4,000. And it's a little harder for me to take and kind of understand, but it just depends on your situation and your work environment and what you're doing. So if you have a lot of people that are doing the printing with you, and let's say you have one person that is really good at pre-treating and then another person that's okay, one person that's horrible, your consistency is all over the place, right? So you want that one person that's good. That's it. You're the pre-treating guy, period. Because you need that consistency. So you're going to end up with inconsistency, and that's going to cost you money. Whereas as long as your pre-treatment machine's running well, you have total consistency there. So pre-treatment machines are good, but you really have to take care of them. And some people make their own spray booths. That can be done. One thing to keep in mind is if you do that kind of thing, you always want to make sure that the shirt is sitting flat or maybe up at an angle just a little bit. If you go vertical with your shirt, and that's one thing why some people hang their shirts to dry. You want to keep them flat, because if you think about it, when it's hanging or sitting up vertically, the pre-treatment is being pulled by gravity towards the bottom of the shirt. So you might notice the white looks better than it does at the top of the shirt at the bottom. So that can happen from hanging. So let's see. Yes, Mindy, the printer does come with a Wagner sprayer. So it comes with all the inks you need. It comes with the pre-treatments. It comes with the Wagner sprayer and the software and the support and all those things that the basic things that you need. And Laura said that she's thrown a small fridge that she might have to go get. Use that for a booth or something for screen printing. Let's see. One other thing too. The printer. Hold on, I just got a couple more questions here. This new ink, the Gamut Plus ink, works really well with conveyor dryers too. So if you're running a little bit larger operation or you're screen printing and you already have a conveyor dryer, this ink is very, very, very conveyor friendly. DuPont ink, unless you're using the DuPont ink, which is a thicker viscosity that would work with, let's say, like Ricoh printheads, if you're using a printer that's Epson based, it does not work very well with a conveyor dryer. It looks good because you're not getting that sort of the pressure from the heat press, which might slightly dull it, but it doesn't wash at all very well. So the Gamut Plus inks work. They're totally friendly with conveyor dryers. And with the conveyor dryers, it's a forced air conveyor dryer. They can be electric or gas, but the main thing is that they're forced air. Okay. Other thing too, really quickly here, for you guys that have joined the webinar, and I'm going to record this too, so if you ever want to kind of go back on it, for 24 hours, if you go to omniprintonline.com /webinar, there's some specials going on right now just for you guys that attended. So specials on ink. We also have vinyl cutters and it's really awesome vinyl that we just started to sell to help supplement the stuff that you guys do out there and give you some good products. So there's a lot of stuff on there, which is just for you guys, just for 24 hours. If you're looking at a printer, there's a $4,000 rebate on the printer. If you want to take advantage of that. One last thing that I want to hit up here, and still a ton of you guys in here. Thank you so much for joining me and hanging in there with me. And I hope it helped and you guys learned something from it. But one last thing that I really would like to bring up is we have been working really, 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 really hard on some software, which is going to be very important for you guys that are at a point to where you need to have really good automation and flow with your jobs when they come in. And what we have is a new software which is called Work, which is WURK. And essentially what it does is the customer would go online and they will do their print, put in their graphics, set their, buy the shirts, do their job. That then comes out as a barcode label, which you would then take, stick in on the back of the shirt or wherever. And once it comes out, you scan it. So first of all, you can scan it. We'll tell you this is the shirt you need to grab, this size, this model number, this style number, sorry. And then you would scan it again. These are all options, but you scan it again to see if it needs to be pre-treated or not pre-treated. And then when you scan it again, you're putting the shirt on the printer, you scan the label, and the printer starts printing it. So you don't even need to enter the image into the RIP. You don't need to press print. You don't do any. All you need to do is scan it and then press print. It does all that. So it's a really nice workflow automation, and there's so much more to it. We're going to be showing it at Long Beach. We're just finishing up a video on it, so you guys can check it out. But it really helps automate every aspect of the printing to make things easier. So that job's coming in from, let's say you work with somebody that you do fulfillment for, and it's just coming out as a label. You scan it, and you can set as many variables as you need for it to, one, you could just have it to where when you scan it, boom, the graphic pops up and it prints it. So that also really helps you with, an employee. You don't really need to spend $1 million to have somebody that just has to press a print button. And so there's many, many variables for it. It also sets you up into a system where you're live with other users and they are using you for printing, or you can use them. Let's say you need help getting other jobs done, so it's a very unique software that's been in the works for a long time, and we will be showing it in Long Beach. We'll have a video on it in the next day or two here, just so you guys can see how it works, and so keep an eye out for it. And just once again, to let you guys know, we're starting to carry vinyl cutters and vinyl and a few little other things to help supplement your printing. So if you're already doing some vinyl cutting, we have some great deals on vinyl and some really high quality vinyls. And also it helps people get to the point of being able to buy. You got to start somewhere, right? So we want to be able to become a little bit closer to more of a one-stop shop for you guys and offer, the best quality and support on everything. So I went over my hour quite a bit here, and you guys pretty much all hung in there. So I really want to say thank you a lot for showing up and listening to me today. And I hope you got something out of it. Please feel free to, my email is right here. So it's P for Paul Green at OmniPrintOnline.com. Feel free to send me any questions you guys have, if you have our printer or not, or whatever. Doesn't matter. For you guys that are going, anybody you guys that are going to the Long Beach show, we will be there. We'll be showing the work software. We'll be using we have a surprise thing that we'll be doing there too. But we'll have the plus. We'll be printing on polyester. And if you show up to the show and you go to our booth, you can fill in a little registration to win a free printer giveaway that we're doing at the show. So we did this in Vegas. So we gave away a printer in Vegas. We did a raffle, and it was pretty incredible. So the person won the printer, and it was great. We had a ton of people show up for the raffle at the end of it. So, it's a good deal. If you're going to be in Long Beach, come by and sign up and see if you can win a printer. So anyways, you guys, thank you so much. I'm going to record this and it will be on YouTube. Please visit our website and definitely check it out, the omniprintonline.com/webinar. And I'd like to thank you once again for joining me. And we should be doing another webinar usually I try to do them once a month, and I want to make them based on things that help you guys out. Besides, going over our product, other things, better pre-treating, how to do things with graphics, ways that we can help you guys kind of get to the next level if you need that help. We're also going to be putting together some labs and classes here to where you can come and learn things and really dial them in, and also do that online too. So let's say you need to learn how to do graphic stuff better, or pre-treat, or just generally direct-to-garment printing sort of in the next level over the training you get. So anyways, you guys, thank you very much. And I will keep in touch with all of you, and have a great day.